The roar of the crowd vibrated through the arena as two of the most ferocious competitors in combat sports stared each other down, locked in a battle of wills that would shake the very foundation of the sport. Mike Tyson, the legendary boxing icon known for his raw power and unyielding aggression, was no stranger to epic showdowns. But this time, the stakes were different. Standing across from him was a rising star in the world of mixed martial arts, Dricus du Plessis, a fighter with the strength, technique, and hunger to topple giants. The energy was palpable, the tension thick, and one thing was certain, only one of them would walk away victorious. But who would it be? Tyson's reputation as a destroyer of men was etched into the annals of boxing history. His knockout power was the stuff of legend. One punch, and the fight could end in an instant. His name alone commanded respect, his terrifying presence in the ring sending fear into opponents long before the first bell rang. But now, decades after his prime, Tyson's body had seen the wear of age, and his most recent return to the ring showed that time had not been entirely kind. Still, there was no mistaking his heart or his unmatched ability to take on any challenge thrown his way. On the other side stood du Plessis, a man whose MMA career had been marked by explosive performances and an ironclad determination. The South African's unrelenting pursuit of victory had already earned him a spot among the sport's elite, and he wasn't there to simply make up the numbers. As Tyson's reputation loomed over him like a shadow, du Plessis saw this fight as his moment to not just face a legend but to conquer one. The bell rang, and the crowd fell silent. The atmosphere was charged with anticipation as both fighters moved towards the center of the ring, eyes locked in a fierce gaze. Tyson's experience and raw power were undeniable, but du Plessis' dynamic versatility in MMA presented a challenge unlike any Tyson had faced before. Could Tyson's vintage power overwhelm the younger, more agile fighter? Or would du Plessis use his superior conditioning and technique to outlast the heavyweight legend? The battle between the past and the future was set to unfold, with every punch, every move, every decision potentially changing the course of both men's careers. Tyson, despite his years away from the spotlight, remained a living legend, his legacy a blend of brute strength and an iron will that no one could easily dismiss. Du Plessis, however, carried the fire of youth, a rising star, hungry to make his own mark and prove that even the most feared champions could be toppled. As the fighters circled each other, a sense of uncertainty settled over the crowd. The outcome of this fight was anything but certain. Would Tyson's raw aggression and power have enough to overcome du Plessis' well-rounded skill set and relentless drive? The air crackled with tension as both fighters prepared to clash, each one carrying a legacy of their own. But there was one thing neither of them could control. The outcome would depend on a single moment, a single mistake, or a single moment of brilliance. And then, as the first exchange of punches began, the true test of strength, strategy, and willpower was underway. Would Tyson's thunderous punches land with the precision of his prime, or would du Plessis' fluid movement and tactical striking turn the tide in his favor? One thing was for certain, the fight had only just begun, and what came next would be a moment etched into combat sports history forever. The first round was a battle of wills, a back-and-forth exchange that had the crowd on the edge of their seats. Tyson, though slower than in his prime, unleashed a series of brutal hooks, each one like a sledgehammer aimed at du Plessis' jaw. The MMA fighter, nimble and quick on his feet, dodged most of the onslaught, but a few of Tyson's punches landed, sending shockwaves through his body. The crowd erupted with every successful strike, their cheers vibrating through the arena like the thundering pulse of a heart. But du Plessis wasn't just surviving, he was adapting. With every passing second, he seemed to grow more comfortable, his timing more precise. He ducked under Tyson's left hook, pivoted to the side, and fired back with a devastating combination of his own. A spinning back kick caught Tyson off guard, slamming into his ribs with enough force to make the former champion stagger back. It was an unexpected twist. Tyson had been known for his ferocious boxing, but du Plessis was bringing a whole new level of unpredictability into the mix. The crowd gasped, and for the first time, it felt like Tyson was in real danger. Tyson, stunned but not out, adjusted quickly, his eyes narrowing in focus. He knew he couldn't let du Plessis control the pace. With a primal roar, he surged forward, pressing the South African against the ropes, unleashing a fury of punches designed to break his spirit. Du Plessis was visibly shaken, his defense wavering as Tyson's blows rained down like a storm. But just as Tyson went in for the kill, du Plessis displayed a level of composure that defied his years. He swept Tyson's legs out from under him with a perfectly executed trip, sending the legend crashing to the canvas. The crowd held their breath as Tyson's body hit the mat with a thud. For a moment, it seemed like time had stopped. Tyson, shaken but not defeated, quickly regained his footing. But something was different now. His breathing was heavier, his movements slower. For the first time in this fight, Tyson looked mortal. Du Plessis, on the other hand, was showing no signs of slowing down. His confidence had grown exponentially in the past few minutes, and he was beginning to take control of the fight in ways that no one had expected. As Tyson wiped the sweat from his brow, a quiet murmur ran through the crowd. Was he starting to show his age? Could this be the moment when the young lion finally toppled the once unstoppable force? The air was thick with anticipation as the second round began, and the fighters once again closed the distance between them. But just as the tension seemed ready to boil over, a wild, unexpected twist rocked the fight in a direction no one could have predicted. Tyson, who had been known for his raw power and ferocity, seemed to struggle with his balance and timing. But then, a strange shift occurred. As he backed up to reassess, Tyson grabbed his left arm with a grimace of pain. The crowd fell silent, wondering if the old warrior had suffered a serious injury. His face twisted in agony as he shook out the arm, but his eyes never left du Plessis. He wasn't about to quit, not without one final thunderous swing. Du Plessis, sensing an opportunity, moved in for the kill. His movements were fluid and relentless, like a predator closing in on its prey. He launched a spinning wheel kick, aiming to end the fight with a flourish. But Tyson, despite his injury, reacted with a speed that defied expectations. His right hand, an instinctive reaction born of years of experience, shot out like a cobra strike, connecting with du Plessis' chin in an explosive display of raw power. For a brief moment, everything seemed to freeze the crowd, the fighters, the world. Tyson's punch was so precise, so perfectly timed, that it felt like fate had intervened. Du Plessis hit the canvas hard, his body sprawled across the mat like a rag doll. The sound of his fall echoed throughout the arena, and the crowd exploded into chaos. Was this it? Was Tyson about to prove once again that age was just a number and that his legendary knockout power had not faded with time? But as the referee began his count, du Plessis stirred. Slowly, he pushed himself off the mat, his eyes wide with determination, as if the very idea of losing was something he simply couldn't accept. His body trembled, but he was back on his feet. The crowd went wild. Could Tyson really finish this fight? Or had du Plessis just proven that he wasn't willing to go down without a fight? The tension had reached its peak, and the outcome of this clash of titans was still far from certain. Tyson, looking both exhausted and determined, advanced once more. Du Plessis, visibly shaken but resolute, took his stance. This fight was far from over. It had only just entered its most dangerous phase. And in that moment, the world seemed to hold its breath, waiting to see which fighter would emerge victorious from this unimaginable clash. The tension in the arena reached a fever pitch as Tyson and du Plessis squared off once more. The damage was clear on both sides. Tyson's movements had slowed, and du Plessis was showing signs of exhaustion. The South African's breathing was heavy, his legs trembling, but his eyes were locked on Tyson, like a hawk preparing for its final strike. The fight had become a war of attrition, with each blow landing like the toll of a bell on a battlefield. The question that loomed over the entire fight was no longer whether Tyson could finish it. It was whether du Plessis could survive long enough to prove his place among the greatest. Tyson, driven by sheer will, threw one final barrage of punches. His fists were like wrecking balls, aiming to end the fight in a flurry of raw aggression. But du Plessis, with his unmatched resilience, evaded them with a move so precise it seemed almost choreographed. He ducked under Tyson's right hand and countered with a series of devastating strikes and uppercut, a right hook, and then, in a moment of sheer brilliance, a spinning back fist that rocked Tyson's head backward. For a brief moment, it seemed like Tyson was in free fall, his body momentarily suspended in time before crashing to the canvas. The crowd erupted in disbelief. Was this the end? The referee immediately began the count, his voice cutting through the chaos. Tyson, battered but not broken, fought to push himself up from the mat. The seconds felt like hours. Would he rise again, or had du Plessis finally broken the unbreakable? But just as the referee reached the count of 8, something incredible happened. Tyson's hand shot up, his body swaying as he dragged himself to his feet with an effort that spoke to his incredible heart and determination. The roar of the crowd grew deafening as Tyson, battered and bloodied, stood tall once again. His eyes, though filled with pain, reflected the same fire they had decades ago. Tyson was back on his feet, but for how long? Du Plessis, sensing that his opponent was on the ropes, launched into a brutal assault. He knew this was his moment. Every punch he threw was calculated to break Tyson's will, to finish what had been started. He connected with a jab, followed by a left hook that nearly sent Tyson stumbling back. But in that moment, something in Tyson snapped an instinctive primal surge of energy. As du Plessis moved in for the kill, Tyson, against all odds, unleashed a ferocious left uppercut that landed square on du Plessis' chin. Time seemed to freeze as the force of the punch sent du Plessis crashing to the canvas, his body limp, eyes glazed over. The arena was in chaos. A stunned silence fell over the crowd as Tyson stood, panting, his chest heaving with the effort of a man who had given everything. The referee stepped in, immediately calling for the fight to end. Tyson had done it. He had defied the odds, proven the naysayers wrong, and delivered a knockout that would go down in history as one of the greatest comebacks ever. As the bell rang, Tyson collapsed to his knees, his arms raised in exhaustion and triumph. The crowd's roar was deafening, shaking the very walls of the arena. The impossible had happened. Tyson, the aging champion, had triumphed over the hungry up-and-comer in a display of raw power and unmatched resilience. But just as Tyson was celebrated for his victory, an unexpected twist rattled the victory celebrations. As du Plessis was helped to his feet, a look of disbelief crossed his face. His eyes, still fogged by the blow, focused on Tyson. Through the haze, he managed to smile, nodding in silent acknowledgement. The warrior spirit that had driven him in the fight despite the loss was still there. But it was the words he spoke, barely audible but powerful, that took everyone by surprise. "You may have won today," he whispered, "but this isn't the end. I'll be back, stronger than ever. This is only the beginning." Tyson, still gasping for breath, met his gaze, a quiet understanding passing between them. The battle had been fierce, but in the end, it was a reminder of the respect that existed between these two warriors, one at the peak of his legendary career, the other rising fast to challenge the limits of greatness. As Tyson raised his arms in victory, the crowd continued to cheer. But the real victory wasn't just in the knockout. It was the moment of respect that had transcended the fight. Tyson had proven his place in history, but du Plessis had earned his showing the world that no matter how tough the challenge, no matter how great the odds, there was always room for another legend to rise. The story of Tyson versus du Plessis would be told for years to come, not just for the brutal clash between two of the greatest warriors to step into the ring, but for the undying spirit of competition, the heart of a champion, and the legacy of those who refuse to give up. And as the lights of the arena dimmed, the crowd knew that this fight, though over, was only the beginning of something much larger.